My fellow Montanans, I am Dr. Kyle Austin, owner of Farm 406. And on today's My Fellow Montanans, we're going to get into some government ridiculousness. We're going to talk about some government corruption, but we're also going to talk about what's going on in Montana and the fun that we Montanans can have. So welcome to this Sunday's episode of My Fellow Montanans. What a great month to be in the state of Montana, right? It is fall. Fall is among us. It is the cooler temperatures are out there. The time changes are coming very, very soon. Our trees will start changing colors and those leaves will start falling off. And before you know it, we'll have Halloween where all those kids and those adults are out there dressed up, pretending to be a fantasy character. But anyway, it's just the fun of being in Montana in our great outdoors as well. And don't forget to blow out your sprinklers before the ground freezes, because if you don't, it will cost you a lot of money next spring. And so just kind of kick off today's episode. What is new in well, not necessarily new in Montana, but what is really big right around the corner that we need to get excited about? And if you're a Farm 406 customer, you can take advantage of this great opportunity. So the Montana Millionaire, folks, the Montana Millionaire is coming around the corner here on November 1st. So mark your calendar for November 1st. Now, a little history here on the Montana Millionaire. This is a once-a-year event with the Montana Lottery. Once a year, okay? And I started playing 3 years ago when I started playing, and there was only a couple $1 million grand prizes, and there was only so many tickets, but it didn't sell out till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I didn't win anything. But the next year, a couple years ago, they increased it to, I think it was 3 million grand prize tickets, and it sold out at 11 in the morning. So you can see there's more and more demand for these tickets and more people getting involved. Well, this year, and let's back up here. Last year, okay, ironic story. I was going to buy my tickets. I'm on the way to Farm 406 to go to work, and there's lines at the gas station. I'm telling you what, it's almost like an apocalypse where everyone's afraid that you can't get gas anymore, and they're at the gas station trying to get every last drop of gas because all the gas stations were packed at 6 in the morning. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go get my coffee, and I'm just going to go to the office and wait till everybody has to get to work. Then at 8 o'clock, I go over to a gas station. I get in line, and I start purchasing my tickets. And halfway through my tickets at 8:15 in the morning, they sold out. I got a couple tickets. I didn't get all that I wanted. But anyway, this year, the Montana Millionaire is going to offer 1 million grand prizes. I wish we could say billion. Why can't Montana Lottery come up with the Montana Billionaire? Maybe next year they could have a $1 billion prize, the Montana Billionaire. But anyway, 1 million grand prizes. And this is the highlights. Okay, so the $1 million prizes, there's going to be 620 total tickets sold. So that's up 120,000 tickets from last year. Each ticket's going to cost you $20. And the odds are better this year, obviously, folks, with the additional $1 million prize, even adding in the extra tickets. But guess what? There are instant winners. So they will have 6,100 $100 instant winners. They will have 2,500 $500 instant winners. One $250,000 prize, and then the 1 million prizes. So on November 1st at 5:30 in the morning, that's when ticket sales starts. So I'm assuming people are going to start lining up at Farm 406 at 5 in the morning, or maybe they'll just go out and since it's a Saturday morning on a Friday night, they'll close the bars down. Then they'll go grab some breakfast if they can find some breakfast at that time in the morning, and then camp out in my parking lot. Who knows? But on that November 1st, the instant winners will win their instant prizes. Then after that, on December 1st, everyone has an opportunity to win the $250,000 prize. And then you have to wait until December 26th. So this is going to be your Christmas present. Okay. The day after Christmas, or is it? Yeah, day after Christmas, they will draw the 1 million grand prizes. So pretty cool. I mean, that's some fun here in Montana. But here's the thing. There's been some controversy out there on who should be able to buy a ticket. Should it be limited to just Montanans? I think it should. I mean, it's a Montana millionaire ticket, but they don't. They allow out of staters, no matter if you're Canadian, Washington, California, Wyoming, blah, blah, blah. They allow you to come in and participate in our lottery. However, this this is where being a Farm 406 customer benefits you, because this year Farm 406 installed a Montana lottery machine inside the pharmacy, and we will allow only VIP admissions to Farm 406 customers only. That's right. So if you've been actively filling your prescriptions at Farm 406 and you've been a loyal customer, ask for your Montana Millionaire admission ticket. This is a golden ticket. This is like the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where you have to get your golden ticket to get access to the factory. But in this instance, you have to be a Farm 406 customer and you get VIP access to the lottery. So you don't have to stand in line. You don't have to fight for a ticket. Now, there's probably going to be a line outside Farm 406 because we have a lot of loyal customers. So this is how you got to get your VIP ticket. When you're in filling your prescription, ask a Farm 406 employee for your Montana Millionaire admission ticket. Because if you show up on November 1st, you will not get through the front door without your golden ticket. Now, isn't that fun, folks? And it also it takes care of our customers. It is customer appreciation, because I appreciate each and every customer that supports Farm 406. So on our previous shows, I want to talk about a couple of the previous guests. So a couple of weeks ago, we had Public Service Commissioner President Brad Monar on here. A couple takeaways from that conversation that I want to talk about is when we elect officials, we really want term limits, right? Everyone's talking about having term limits. So if you get a bad egg in there, we can get that bad egg out. We can end corruption. But guess what? What Brad talked about was the power of the executive directors. And I've never thought about it before, but our government is ran by the executive directors. There's no term limits, there's no accountability, and these are the corrupt individuals in our government. What are we going to do about that? Do we, you always think, like, if I was governor, if Kyle Austin was governor, what would he do about the executive directors for accountability and ending the corruption? I think we should have term limits in there, or there should be a lateral move, or something needs to be in place there where we get rid of executive directors and there's more turnover. Maybe a 10-year term limit. But we got to get them out of there, because I was thinking about it. The Board of Pharmacy has an executive director. All right. And she's been in there for longer than I've been a pharmacist. And the Board of Pharmacy is garbage. And there's a lot of corruption in there. And we'll talk about some of that corruption either today or on another episode. But the Board of Pharmacy, with that executive director, they run the show how they want to. They don't have to answer to an elected official. They don't have to answer to a taxpayer. They don't have to answer to a voter. It is their own little group. And they run their board of directors or their board of pharmacy and cause a lot of corruption. And the same thing was going on in the Public Service Commission with Brad Monar. We need to hone in as taxpayers now on the executive directors to end corruption. The other interesting thing that President of the Public Service Commission, Brad Monar, brought up was tranche fees. We didn't get into it a lot, but I got to do a little research on this. But if you got time, look at what tranche fees are in the utility industry. And Brad highlighted the corruption that is going on. And I want to educate myself, and I want to get Brad Monar back in here to discuss the corruption of tranche fees and how the utility companies make billions of dollars. This is a $1 billion corruption off the ratepayers. But stay tuned for that, because that is something I think we need to expose in the corrupt industries, or the legal corruption that's going on. So what's in the news right now? Government shutdown. Yes, our federal government is shut down. I wish our state government was shut down, and I wish our city government was shut down. And because it's a good thing. I mean, you can ask yourself, is a government shutdown a good thing or a bad thing? And you got people out there trying to make it sound like a bad thing, like, oh, our traffic controllers are not showing up to work and people aren't getting paid. But guys, at the end of the day, this is when the government is shut down, we realize what is a necessity part of the government, what is unnecessary, what don't we need in our government. And that's what we should really hone in on is when the government shut down, what can we leave shut down permanently and get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy out there and the garbage and the overspending. But when we talk about what's going on in the government shutdown, why it's shut down is because the Democrats are arguing over the premium reduction payments from Obamacare. Now, you've heard me if you listen to my show, and I hope you listen to my show every day, but we talk about PBM reform and the need for pharmacy benefit manager reform and the corruption within the insurance companies, correct? We know it's out there. We know we have to do this. Well, the premium reduction payments, folks, need to go bye-bye. That is part of the PBM reform. That is part of the insurance corruption. Now, think about it. Prior to Obamacare, you could go out and you could buy a health insurance policy from an agent. There was no marketplace at that time, but from an agent, and you could get it way cheaper, way less expensive. For instance, I was able to get a health insurance package with pharmacy benefits with dental and vision for $150 a month. That was my monthly premium. Now it had a $5,000 deductible. Or no, back up. It had a $3,000 deductible. Well, that was affordable to me. Then the Obamacare Affordable Care Act came into play. Guess what? My premiums went up to $350 and my deductible went to $5,000. And that's even after the federal government is providing premium reduction payments to the insurance companies. Now think about that. That is PBM insurance corruption. And the Republicans are right. The Republicans need to eliminate those premium reduction payments to those companies because they are profiteering and they are hosing, they are screwing over the payers out there. Let's just say it. Let's just be blunt about it, I guess, right? They are corrupt and they're hosing the people out there that are paying for their insurance, paying for their Medicare premiums, and then the insurance companies and the PBMs are not paying the pharmacies. They're not paying me correctly. We got to fix that. So the government shutdown is great. Now, why can't we should have like a state government shutdown? Because in the state of Montana, if we were to shut down, what would we miss and what would we want to get rid of and what would we keep? And I really think we could get rid of the Montana Department of Labor and Industry and save us millions of dollars. Because the Montana Department of Labor and Industry, I mean, it's a big government bloated pile of garbage. And the Montana Board of Pharmacy sits in there, and I'm going to go off on one of these days on the government corruption within the Montana Board of Pharmacy. It's coming. I've been stacking it up, and I'm about ready to vent, but not today, or not right now anyway. But what about shutting down the city of Billings? If we shut down the city of Billings government, what could we shut down and what could we leave shut down? I would love to shut down the city planning and zoning. I mean, they've raised the prices of doing business and the cost of building in the city. Small guys can't afford to do it. And that's part of the government corruption because these larger corporations and these larger developers have created this process to prevent the competition of the little guy. And you have to think about that because Albertsons is a big guy, and I don't support Albertsons, but they have key players. And I'll talk about one of those big key players in the Montana Board of Pharmacy. But the Republican Party just allowed one of them on our commissioners in our commissioner's office. He is a previous Albertsons manager, and he is in there doing the business of Albertsons at your dime. And he's going to create rules, create laws, create restrictions so Albertsons doesn't have competition. And I can guarantee that will probably happen. You know, the other thing I would probably shut down in the city of Billings is the code enforcement officer. These guys are like glorified mall cops just running around harassing people. Get rid of them. Give them a broom and tell them to go sweep the sidewalk. I don't care, but get rid of them. But if we shut down the city government, look at all the money we would save, because our city council, and we can blame Jennifer Owens, because Jennifer Owens has been running for mayor, right? And she's been having some backing, but she has been spending out of control spending out of the city council. And so if we can shut down that spending, how much can we lower taxes for the local citizens? A lot. A lot. And one of the big spending package that was approved that really, yeah, God, it kind of irritated me. And it's that legal corruption that we keep talking about. It's the $622,000 that they approved to hire a guy to do an assessment and evaluation of the Billings Airport for future development. And they're not hiring someone local. They're hiring some guy on the East Coast, and they're coming in and charging $622,000 to tell them, oh, yeah, you got a great airport and you could do all these great things, but you got to come up with billions and zillions of dollars to do it. Now that's ridiculous, right? Why would you approve for that assessment? The FAA will probably do the assessment for you, folks. But the city of Billings doesn't know that. They just had this bid and said, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's spend your money and do it. So remember, Farm 406 is Montana's vaccination destination. Get a brew, not the flu. And what that means is with every flu shot you get, now you can only get one flu shot a year, right? But with the flu shot, you get your choice of a free beer at Canyon Creek Brewery, or you can get a free Mazevo coffee at Mazevo Coffee. What a great deal, right? You get a flu shot, get a brew. Get a brew, not the flu. Farm 406 is open 7 days a week. Walk in, no appointments. Now, the other cool thing is, Farm 406 helps support the seniors that are on Medicare, because they get hosed also by the Medicare companies. But here on October 15th, Medicare enrollment opens up. And this is something that seniors forget about, because they get a Medicare plan. They're happy with it. They're all right with it. And they don't go out of their way to see if those insurance plans are going to be in their best interest the next year, because these PBMs, these pharmacy benefit managers out there that adjudicate these claims for the federal government, they change their rules. They change their policies. They're allowed to do it at any time they want to. So these seniors that think that I like my plan, guess what? Those companies are changing those plans on you. So the following year, you're going to have to pay more out of pocket, and you're not going to get the best bang for your buck. So every year, it is very critical for anybody on Medicare to actually go see a licensed representative. Now, I'm going to say those people aren't corrupt, because they are corrupt also. But Farm 406 works with a lady right here in Billings, Montana, named Wendy Nelson at Ask Insurance. And I've had many conversations to make sure Wendy does what is best for the people of our community. Because what happens is, if you go to an insurance agent that sells Medicare plans, they are going to push you to a plan that is paying them more. Believe it or not, Humana was one of the big ones out there that have paid reps more money for the more people they sign up on their plans, whether that plan was in the best interest of the senior or not. That's garbage. That is corruption. And seniors ended up on plans that they were basically told that this is your best plan, but they were put on it because the rep made more money. That's garbage. So if you're looking for a plan or need someone to give you, a second opinion, go see Wendy at Ask Insurance. The other interesting thing about the corruption with these Medicare plans is, you go on there and you're like, all right, I want a plan that I can use at Farm 406. You can't find one. And the reason you can't find one, it's money. These big corporations pay to have their plan show up as preferred. And so I have to tell people, it's like, no, you can still go pick the plan that covers your medications. Farm 406 is still a preferred pharmacy. It is because we are a small independent, and we are not paying the PBMs money to put my name on their list. So keep that in mind on the Medicare corruption. So let's talk a little bit about President Trump sending troops into cities without permission. Now, I would agree that Washington, D.C., since it's not a U.S. city, it's not a U.S. state, he has the authority to send troops into Washington, D.C. to control crime and to clean it up. But as far as sending troops out into Illinois, into Chicago, I would agree with the judges and I would agree with the mayors and the governors that are out there that President Trump has no right to send troops into their city unless they ask for permission or the cities need help. So I would agree with that, especially in Montana. I had the thought of if I woke up one day and all of a sudden there was military troops with tanks and trucks going down the street, and now we're in a military zone. How would that make you feel? Does it make you feel American? Does it make you feel comfortable? Or better yet, does it make you feel like you have freedom? I don't think it makes me feel like I have freedom. Now, with the crime rates and stuff going up, like in Chicago, if I was the mayor of Chicago and my police department could not control the crime, they couldn't control, or the mob, let's say there was a mob out there, they couldn't control the mob, then I would ask the governor and the president of the United States to send troops in. But until I do, President Donald Trump, stay in Washington, D.C. I believe our federal government, the obligations of the federal government is to protect the 50 states. I believe that's it. And outside of that, they should leave the government to the states and the local government, the city governments. So something new kind of in Montana where Congress recently overturned the Biden era ban on the BLM coal in eastern Montana. So let's talk about coal a little bit here because this gets into climate change slash jobs and, the whole battle between that. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management outside Miles City, in that Miles City office, a couple years ago, they basically said there will be no new leases on 1.7 million acres of land deemed for potential coal development. And the arguments out there, you have the Biden era, which is like, all right, we want climate, we want to protect our climate, we want to stop emissions, stop global warming. Then you have the Republicans out there that are arguing for coal development, basically because of job loss. They want to protect the jobs. So I guess, I feel like the arguments could be made better. Because if you're going to use the argument about open up the coal just to create jobs, I don't think that outweighs the air that we breathe and the world that we live in. But then I take it a little bit further here. I want to know, like, do we really even need coal anymore in our society? Think about that one. I mean, a lot of the coal that we mine here is just put on a train and it's shipped over and sold to China. But can we do without coal? Can we leave coal in the ground and survive just fine? I think so. Back in the day, they needed coal for the heating your house, heating the schools, heating the infrastructure because they had the big boilers. But nowadays, you don't need that. We don't need coal strip anymore. I mean, we've diversified so much with hydroelectric power. We've diversified with wind energy, solar energy, um, energy efficiency. I mean, look how much less energy a light bulb burns these days. So can we live without coal? And that's really the topic that I think we need to think about. So anyway, the U.S. reps and the House overturned the rule to allow future development of coal development. So we'll see where that goes here in Montana. I really don't foresee. I mean, you got a lot of Montanans out there that want us to be like Wyoming, where we're just go, 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 get that coal, get that coal. But I don't think that's for Montana. I really don't. Well, my fellow Montanans, we are going to take a break. And after this break, we're going to dive into some more government corruption and government ridiculousness. Remember, Farm 406 is your vaccination destination where you can get a brew, not the flu. Welcome back to my fellow Montanans. I am Dr. Kyle Austin, owner of Farm 406, and we are here talking government corruption. But we're going to talk about something fun here because if you missed the first half of the show, Montana Millionaire will be having the 5 and 25 drawing this fall. But you can buy your tickets on November 1st at 5:30 in the morning at Farm 406. But this is the cool thing. Farm 406 will only sell tickets to Farm 406 customers only. So, in order to get through our front doors, you have to have the golden ticket. You have to have the Montana Millionaire admission ticket. And the only way to get that is to come in and fill your prescription and ask for it. Because if you do not have that on November 1st, you will not be able to get through the front door to get VIP access to purchasing your Montana Millionaire tickets. And Montana Millionaire, offered by the Montana Lottery, has grown. I mean, last year they sold out at 8:15 in the morning. That's crazy. People were lined up at the gas station like it's the end of the world, and they were fighting for their life. That is crazy. So Farm 406 did something for their customers. They installed a lottery machine this year, and it is a great benefit to say thank you to Farm 406 customers. And this year, though, at the Montana Millionaire, there are 5, because last year they only had 4. So this year they have 5 $1 million grand prizes. And you're not going to win right on November 1st. You got to buy your ticket and hold on to it because they're not going to draw for that $1 million prize until November 26th. But the day of purchasing your ticket, you have the opportunity to win 2,500 instant $500 prizes. You have your chance of winning 6,100 $100 instant prizes. And then everybody on December 1st will have a chance to win the $250,000 prizes. Ain't that fun? I like gambling. You got to be responsible when you're gambling, though. But this is a once a year event for Montanans. Well, they do let outsiders in, and that's debatable. But the great thing is Farm 406 won't let outsiders in because you have to be a Farm 406 customer. So this is Montanans taking care of Montanans right here. So get your VIP golden ticket for the Montana Millionaire at Farm 406 and avoid the lines. So let's jump back into some stuff here. So let's talk about a new Montana law that increases penalties for fleeing the law enforcement. Now, there's going to be some stupid stuff here because cops and robbers, I mean, if I don't agree with the police, I should have a right to run, right? You do. And if you get caught, then you got to face the law. But now they are calling it aggravated fleeing. I mean, our government just likes to make things more complicated and make more people more criminals and more pets of society. But anyway, what this does is it changes it from a misdemeanor to a felony if you are convicted of fleeing a second time. So you can get away. The way I read this is that you can run from the cops once, all right, and it's a misdemeanor. So I guess you get that one strike. So keep that in mind. The first time a cop's chasing you, go ahead and take advantage of that. However, if you engage in reckless driving or you cause more than $5,000 in property damage, you leave the state, or you cause serious bodily injury or death to another person, it becomes a felony. Now, this is kind of the stupid stuff because we already have laws that make you a felon if you cause the death of another person. You are already committing a felony offense if you have more than $5,000 in property or cause more than $5,000 in property damage. So why are we making a law that already kind of repeats another law? This is the ridiculousness of this. So do you really think this, but do you really think this new penalty or this new law is really going to make a difference or matter? If you're going to run from the cops, you're going to run from the cops. Criminals don't fear the government. They like the catch game. They like to run and see if they can get away from them. So if you're going to run, you're going to run. We don't need more laws, And the other thing too is to make them a felon, you're just making them pets of society and creating more people or more what do I want to say here? You're creating more pets of society that taxpayers have to pay for. And that's not right. figure out something else. Take away their cars, their ability to buy a car, their ability to insure a car. There are other things that you can do than making them a felon. So remember, Farm 406 is Montana's vaccination destination. Get a brew, not the flu. Farm 406 is open 7 days a week with walk ins, no appointments. So you can come on into Farm 406 and get your flu shot and then get your free beer at Canyon Creek Brewery or your free coffee at Mazevo. And remember, Farm 406 wants you to know that it is Medicare enrollment season starting October 15th. Even if you're happy with your plan, make sure you sit down with Wendy Nelson over at Ask Insurance and review your plan and make sure you are on the best plan for 2026. So the DEA they want to build a headquarters in Billings, Montana. Did you see that in the news there, folks? It kind of popped up and then it really disappeared. And it was really in the midst of the government shutdown. But I'm going to ask yourself, do you really want a DEA headquarters in Billings? I don't think so. I don't want a DEA headquarters in Billings. I don't want one in Montana. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you that the DEA, in my opinion, has been a failure. And have they been a failure in our place in society? I think they do. I mean, what is the DEA or what was the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency's purpose in our society? And have they outreached the intentions of what we want them to do as people? So the DEA obviously has a very broad power. They're like this quiet government agency out there that's supposed to be taking out the bad guys and taking out the illegal drug use. But look at what the history of the DEA. All right, go back to pre 2000. Okay, pre 2000, marijuana was a class one narcotic, highly illegal. Taxpayers spent millions of dollars for DEA agents to track down potheads, lock up potheads, prevent the transportation of marijuana and weed across the southern border. And who won? The potheads did. The DEA didn't do their job back then. The people chose that we want marijuana. We get it. So the DEA failed at the major expense of the taxpayer. Now, then you go into how the DEA and the FDA are supposed to protect the people against opioids, okay? Everyone knows about the opioid crisis and what happened. And so our government is supposed to create regulations. Well, what happened with the opioid crisis is it was an afterthought or it was, oops, we missed the boat on that. Well, instead of the DEA and the FDA and the CDC taking accountability, they started going after manufacturers and started going after pharmacies and started going after doctors and saying, you guys did this. No, we didn't do this. So the question is, and the DEA should be going after, yes, the bad guys that are selling stuff on the streets, and they should be getting drugs off the street. But like I said with the marijuana, they didn't do it. They failed on that. And then they come out with the whole meth situation where they wanted to control meth. What'd they do? They went after your Sudafed, your cold products, and they created a registry. So every time you had to go in and get Sudafed so you can open up your sinuses so you can breathe, you have to show an ID, you have to go in a logbook. And these days now it's digital and it limits quantities. And so here's the thing that I have is why did they even create a logbook? Why not just say, hey, all right, Sudafed is behind the counter in the pharmacy and just tell the pharmacy you can only dispense one box, a day. But they had to create this big government BS. So think about that. And then the DEA comes out and they're like, all right, we're going to create the prescription drug registry in all the states. So then every doctor and every pharmacy has to look in this database. They have to report every narcotic that a person gets. And we're going to create them, or we're going to make them look like a criminal. And so the prescription drug registry, I've said this for, yeah, it's a good tool. There's better ways of doing it. But you got pharmacists at these major corporations and you got the DEA that's looking at everyone's fill history and they don't understand medicine. They don't, but they look at them like, what? That person's taking 120 hydrocodone a month? Oh my God, they have to be a pillhead. They have to be crazy. They have to be selling those. Well, that's labeling, folks. The DEA doesn't understand pain management. A lot of people don't understand pain management. So what I want to say is like, all right, so if you have a registry for diabetics now, are they looking at the doses of diabetics? Because you will have diabetics that require high doses of insulin. And if they get on the U500, and what that means, there's 500 units per mil, and they're taking uh, three, well, let's see, that would be 30 mils. Well, I got a patient that's on 50 mils a month of the U500, and it's a very unique dose. But do we treat that person like a criminal? Like, oh my God, they have to be abusing it or they have to be selling it. We don't do that to a diabetic, do we? No. So why do we do it to a person that has unique pain situations? And that's where I've had problems with the DEA. The DEA has failed because they are going after the Americans, the Montanans that have true medical conditions that are being treated by a physician, that are going to the pharmacy and they are not selling their prescriptions. They are not injecting or snorting their prescriptions. The DEA is going after them because why? It's an easy win. It's an easy win because the DEA can go into the registry and they can target a physician, they can target a pharmacy, and they can target a patient, and they can make them a criminal. Instead, the DEA should be out there on the streets getting the illegal fentanyl off the streets, the illegal meth off the street, the people that don't see a physician, the people that don't go to a pharmacy. That's the place, and that's where the DEA should be. So at the end of the day, when I say the DEA is a failure, I'm right. They are a failure. Do they need an overhaul? Yes, they need an overhaul because they still have a place in society. So we need to call up our senators, Senator Steve Daines and Senator Tim Sheehy, and say, look, we appreciate the position of the DEA and we agree with the need of the DEA, but we need to cut their funding and we need to realign their goals in America. Because what they have been doing is targeting the pain management and scaring physicians for prescribing pain medications to those that need it. So if any of you have recently been prescribed a pain medication and you're like, you go to the pharmacy and they're like, well, we can only give you a 7-day supply. Well, the argument is that is opioid naive patients because they're like, well, we don't know if you can tolerate this, so we don't want you to overdose. So here's a 7-day supply. Well, that's great, right? I mean, it's a good starting point. I would agree with that as a pharmacist. But folks, the real thing is the DEA wants to control prescribing habits. They want to tell the prescribers how to manage your healthcare. And they want to tell the pharmacies that, hey, if you dispense more than this, you have to be, you have to, you're wrong. You can't be doing that. You have to let that person lay there in pain. You have to let that person die. You can't treat them for what the doctor and the patient decide to do for their treatment strategy. So what the DEA is doing is they are discriminating against a disease state. It is. Could an employer discriminate against a diabetic versus as someone that has epilepsy? No, you can't discriminate. So why are they discriminating against a pain management person? Yes, the items are abusive, but a person can also harm themselves on high doses of insulin. You can kill yourself just as easy as you can with oxycodone or hydrocodone. So why are we treating them different? That's wrong. Now, if the patient goes to a doctor and they get the prescription and then the patient is out selling their prescription drug, now that is where the DEA should go after the patient for doing wrong. What I would like to see, and we could start with the state of Montana, but it should be a federal legislation. But in the state of Montana, I would like to see legislation that allows access and fair treatment to patients with pain. Because right now, the DEA has physicians scared to even treat pain. They have them scared of seeing patients for pain. And then they have a lot of pharmacies out there that, oh my God, that doctor had the DEA in there. But at the end of the day, he still has his DEA license, but we shouldn't fill for that person. So then they boycott any prescription that is filled by that doctor, and these patients can't get access to care. So in our next legislative session in 2 years, or another a year and a half here in the state of Montana, that would be a great bill to help the patients in the state of Montana and protect our providers and our pharmacies. So we talked about the need for national PBM reform, especially Medicare. Right now, our government is shut down because the Democrats want the premium payments to go back to the PBMs and the insurance companies. And the Republicans are saying, no, we're eliminating that. And we do need to eliminate that. And so I agree with our Republicans. Get that out of there. Because as of today, we're still paying high premiums. We're still paying high deductibles. But why is the government still paying that rebate? No. That premium payment? No. Get rid of that. We need to, when the government reopens here, we need to take pharmacy benefit manager reform to the national level, and we need to continue with pharmacy benefit manager reform. And it's to protect your access to healthcare. Because I can come on here and I can preach to you that, hey, the insurance companies aren't paying me enough. They are paying me less than the prescription that I'm giving you, and you probably don't care. But the day that every pharmacy closes their doors and there's no doctors and you don't have access, now tell me you don't care. Tell me, because you're seeing that right now. You're seeing even major corporations closing their doors nationwide, and it's because of the corruption in the pharmacy benefit managers. The pharmacies can no longer afford to staff. They can no longer afford the property taxes, and they're shutting their doors down. So the day you can't go to the pharmacy, or you have to turn to maybe a direct mail order and you have to wait for it to come in the mail, but then the post office shuts down and you can't get your prescription drugs. So, well, too bad, so sad, right? So trust me, when I say we need pharmacy benefit manager reform and we need it sooner than later, I hope we get after that. So remember, Farm 406 customers, the Montana Millionaire is right around the corner on November 1st. And this year it's called 5 and 25, where Montana Millionaire will be offering five $1 million grand prizes. And this is November 1st at 5:30 in the morning. You can start buying your tickets, but the drawing for the five $1 million is not until December 26th. But instead of standing in line at all the gas stations, Farm 406 customers get VIP access. So if you fill your prescription at Farm 406, ask for your golden ticket so you can get through the front doors on November 1st to get access to your Montana Millionaire tickets without the lines. That is a great win-win for Farm 406 and Farm 406 customers. Don't show up at the door without a ticket, because you will not get through the front door, folks. So get your VIP ticket to the Montana Millionaire. Now, you might be listening. You're like, man, I don't fill my prescription at Farm 406 because I live in the Heights and they're on the West End, but I really want my golden ticket. Well, transfer your prescriptions to Farm 406 and come get your golden ticket. And you will find out that we are a destination, and Farm 406 is worth the drive from the Heights. A lot of people do it already. But even yet, if you don't want to drive to the West End, we deliver to the Heights also. Free delivery. So you really have no choice not to use Farm 406 as your pharmacy. Well, let's go back. I want to talk about the government corruption, and we only got 5 minutes left on this show, folks. But I think we can cover a lot of this in the 5 minutes that I have, and then I can follow up on another day. But Farm 406, I have been harassed by the Montana Department of Labor, and that's why I talk about shutting down the Department of Labor when I'm governor someday. But I have seen government corruption and corporate interference and collusion at its highest being an independent pharmacy owner. And I'm going to ask for your help to put an end to this. I've been documenting it, and now's the time that we actually call it out. So anyway, let's talk about a big competitor, Albertsons. So I opened my doors 5 years ago here, and immediately upon opening, Albertsons was sending me letters wanting me to close my doors because I was too close to their stores. And they wouldn't stop. And so finally I called them up and I said, Albertsons, I'm not for sale. I'm not closing my doors, but are you for sale? Do you want to sell your pharmacies? Do you want to close your doors? Well, no, Kyle, we're not wanting to sell. Well, then leave me alone because I don't want to sell either. Well, the Montana board inspector is actually a retired pharmacy manager out of the Livingston Albertson store, the Osco pharmacy. Now go figure, right? So he's been a long-time corporate employee. He's retired on their benefits. What's he do? He takes a Montana board inspector position. And so now he's inspecting the competitors of Albertsons. Now think about that. Like he is corporate bred, corporate fed, and he's continually corporate fed, but he takes an official position with the state of Montana where he is now creating regulations for the competitors. And I've seen this guy has been in my pharmacy, and every time he comes in, he's nitpicking and he's really going left wing and he's harassing me. And I've been documenting it, letting it go, and it's been getting worse. It has. And he's been going around to other pharmacies to create some other collusion against Farm 406. And this is why I won't spend $1 in the store of Albertsons, because they're corrupt and they have collusion going on and they're creating corporate interference. You talk about a lot of the struggles that small businesses have in the state of Montana, but here you have a major corporation that are putting key people into key positions. So we have, the board inspector that was Albertsons bred, and then we have the manager here in Billings that went to a commissioner position. We need to put an end to that. And I am going to be working on putting an end to that because I see it. Now, to continue the whole corporate interference and collusion, I opened a second pharmacy in Butte, Montana. And on my first day of opening, we had customers come in, request their transfers from the Safeway, which is also owned by Albertsons. And that manager came into my store, walked up to me, said, he didn't even know my name. He said, well, this is interesting. And I looked at him and I said, well, why is this interesting? Well, normally we put guys like you out of business. Now, what a cocky person, right? Like, you walk into a new business that just opened up, that's a Montana business, and you look them in the face and say, we normally put guys like you out of business. That's their mentality, folks. That's why you shouldn't shop the big corporations, especially Albertsons, if they have that mentality to walk into a small Montana business that goes out of their way to support the community. Farm 406 supports the community of Billings and the community of Montana more than Albertsons ever has been. And I will tell you that straight out. We have supported Relay for Life and donated $7,000 last month. We offer a lot of things, a lot of programs, access to healthcare. I work 7 days a week to make sure people can get in and get their prescriptions. That is why I want to run for governor, because we need to end the corruption that is going on with these major corporations in our state, the collusion that is going on with the Montana Department of Labor, the collusion that is going on with the Board of Pharmacy, and we will put an end to it. So I need your help to put an end to it. My fellow Montanans, Farm 406 is your Montana vaccination destination. With every flu shot, you get your choice of a free beer at Canyon Creek Brewery or a coffee at Mazevo Coffee. And don't forget, you can get your golden admission ticket to the Montana Millionaire at Farm 406. My fellow Montanans, that concludes today's show. You can listen to My Fellow Montanans every Sunday at 7 p.m. on 94.7 FM or the Mighty 790 AM, or listen live anywhere in the world at mighty790.com. If you'd like to be a guest, sponsor, or advertise on the show, email me, Kyle, at farm406.com.